everyone, my name is Chloe. I use she, her pronouns, and we're here celebrating Campus Pride's Founders Day. So I am here with our executive director, Shane.
Hi, everyone. Happy Founders Day.
Happy Founders Day.
It's great to be here. Everyone, my name is Shane. I use he and they pronouns. I'm the executive director and the founder of Campus Pride. It's good to be here.
Good to have you. I guess I'll jump right into the first question, which is, can you share a little bit about your personal journey that led you to start Campus Pride?
Yeah, so first of all, it seems like just yesterday, 2001 is when we were founded, but I actually started doing this work when I was a college student back in the early 90s. I graduated my undergrad in 1995, went on to do my master's work in higher education. And one of the things, I noticed, and still today, there's a lack of visibility and resources on some campuses related to LGBTQ plus communities. And so back then there was even less visibility, less resources. And so, Campus Pride was my passion because I wanted to create a organization that would give back, that would be supported by student leaders, led by student leaders, and to create resources that weren't there. So, that's the passion, and that's kind of how it got all started, was with, me saying, there should be more visibility, there should be more resources there. And I'm very happy to be able to share and talk about all the work that we've done over the last, 22 years now.
Great. And did you have any specific goals or outcomes you hope to achieve when you first founded Campus Pride?
The goal was really quite simple: create visibility, create support, to make sure that no one feels alone or isolated in their LGBTQ journey of coming out. Oftentimes, for myself, coming out was challenging and difficult in my rural community, growing up in a multiracial household, mixed race, Native, Indigenous, and Mexican, and largely passing as white. In my life, I wanted to make sure that queer people at all their intersections were able to find, and live their full authentic selves, like to find their identity, find out who they are, explore, and then to be able to thrive within, any campus community. And growing up in Kansas, it was a challenge, as I'm sure it still is today. And it is, unfortunately, in many states because of the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and state laws that are being passed.
And how do you feel your work has impacted the LGBTQ plus community? And what are some of your success stories or achievements that you're most proud of?
Wow. You just keep rapid firing with the questions today, Chloe. Achievements. Let's start there, and then you can refocus me on the rest part of the question. So my biggest achievement are the students, and I see them as really these amazing human beings who I had the opportunity, the privilege to meet them on their journey and to give them, an opportunity to find a family of other queer people who I brought together and help support, help them find resources to build that community, to find, and live their full authentic selves, as we talk about, and intersectionally not only be queer, but to make sure that they are able to live whatever success in their life. And I see so many of our queer, young people who are now older people, 20 years later, and they're, directors of statewide equality groups, or involved in education. They're, in the military. They are writers. We have a Camp Pride alum who just released a book. And so it's just amazing. And I think that's the achievement, hopefully the impact someone has on someone's life, and particularly for young queer LGBTQ plus people.
I love that. And sort of in a broader scope, how have you seen society evolve or progress relating to LGBTQ plus rights and acceptance since you've started your work?
I would like to think that we actually have progressed, and I do believe that's the case. There's more visibility than ever for LGBTQ plus young adults, largely because of social media. People are able to see queer people, not always across every intersection, particularly for trans people of color or for anyone who's asexual or intersex. There's still a lot of invisibility with bisexual, middle sexualities, but we have made progress. The challenge is with any progress comes a pushback. Today's our Founders Day and we're celebrating that, but at the same time, there's so much work to be done. And when you have, lawmakers who are now the bullies, and, it used to be in high schools, middle schools, there were LGBTQ bullies who would, pick on you for being queer, being different. Now those bullies are lawmakers and they're passing laws that take away visibility, that are trying to push us back in the closet. And particularly for trans folks, they're taking away access to healthcare, gender affirming care. They're not allowing them to participate, in sports. And that type of anti-LGBTQ environment, that climate, will only lead to, unfortunately, difficult, oftentimes alone, isolating times, and even, other negative health harms for LGBTQ plus people. So we have made progress. It's really hard to talk about that progress because of the current state of environment. But, at Campus Pride, we're constantly trying to continue to push forward and recognize the good things we've done, but to realize there's so much more work to be done.
Absolutely. And in that sort of same vein of pushback and pushing forward, what are some of the challenges or obstacles you've faced as the founder of an LGBTQ nonprofit, and how have you overcome them?
Wow. Well, you have been involved with us now for over a year. That's been about a year.
Year and
Because
a half
this
almost.
a year and a half. Wow, time flies. And we had, as everyone did personally as well as organizationally, a rough time out of COVID, and we're still dealing with COVID and trying to figure out, like, what makes sense from a safety perspective, because we always want to create a safe environment regardless. And having lost family members to COVID, getting through COVID financially as an organization, I think the biggest challenge is taking what we've done and being able to showcase and highlight it to show the value of our work. And that's one of the reasons why we have Founders Day, is to say, hey, look at Campus Pride. We have 20 plus years of helping building future leaders, creating safer, more inclusive campus communities. And this is how we've done it. And so telling our story, sharing, our examples of achievements, as I, alluded to earlier, that has been difficult because we're based in the South. Like, Campus Pride isn't in New York to throw a big gala dinner, or in Los Angeles to have a celebrity pop by and say hello. And so our brand and our visibility has always been a challenge. College campuses know the good work that we do. College campuses work with us, but when it comes to getting corporations, companies, getting large donors, grants, it can be challenging being based in the South. And so, that's the part that, as the founder, I love doing the work. I love being, problem solving and helping, fight back. And, I grew up in the 90s. So, groups like ACT UP and the movement was very much grassroots back then. So that comes easy for me as the founder. But the challenge of all the other administrative, telling your story, like, that's the part that's been challenging for Campus Pride to continue to position ourselves as a national organization, working with over 1,400 college campuses in different ways through our programs and services.
Absolutely. And could you discuss a little bit the importance of intersectionality within the community, but also within our organization and what we do?
Intersectionality, our full authentic self, our identities, and how they cross, represent who we are. So, it, growing up again in the 90s, we were very segregated in how we looked at, people and, their identities. And we oftentimes look at queer people as monolithic in their identity, But Campus Pride is constantly challenging ourselves to say, we're a queer intersectional organization, in that we look at queer identity through all the intersections of queer people. So whether that be through, standing up for racial justice, disability justice, making sure our programs are centered around those who are most marginalized or most vulnerable in our community. That's how we try to approach Campus Pride in our work, is really about centering that work around voices that are, oftentimes not heard, or that maybe don't have access to education or, to college. So, that's the way that we try to approach it. And we do that through all of our programs. And I think our young adults who we have active, who are current college students, they're constantly, asking questions, challenging, how we do things, and trying to always be better, and, make sure the organization represents as much as we can, our intersectionality. And that means a lot to me too, as somebody who, passes with white privilege, but, grew up in a Mexican, Native Indigenous household, and, have those roots as part of who I am.
Absolutely. And we've done a lot of looking back and looking at the work that we're currently doing, but looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the future of Campus Pride, but also the LGBTQ plus community as a whole?
So that's the big question. And as a founder, you're constantly trying to figure out, what are you going to, what is your future? What do you want to leave as your mark, when it comes to progress, when it comes to, creating a safer, world for queer people. And, Campus Pride has a number of signature programs, from our leadership camp to the Campus Pride Index to our safe space training. So we're going to continue, offering those quality, really meaningful programs. We're also going to, to broaden out our work and think about, how can we highlight the positive things that are happening, and celebrate queer joy, trans joy. So much of our world is about negative things happening, or anti-LGBTQ, and we get sucked into that work. We sometimes also need to celebrate who we are, and that we, queer people have always been here. We're part of the American history. Alan Turing, Baird Rustin, Audre Lorde. There's just so many queer people that we need to celebrate our history, and we need to look forward and say, what, there's so much more work when it comes to LGBTQ equality. And so Campus Pride is going to make sure that our programs reflect that in the future. We just launched the Career Connect tool, which helps young people find LGBTQ friendly workplaces, and to help them find mentors. Because at the end of the day, I want a young trans woman of color, if they want to be an airline pilot, I want them to be able to have access to somebody who can mentor them, so they can be an airline pilot. I want every job, every career, any type of future, to be open and accessible to queer people, regardless of who they are. And in order to do that, you have to see yourself. And so I hope we have a future where every queer person can see themselves in this world, in our communities.
Absolutely. And then one last question. Are there any messages you want to share out with queer youth and LGBTQ plus students in America right now?
The most important message I feel at this moment is to live your full self, your authentic life. Be loud, be proud to the extent that you can be. But at the end of the day, be safe, take care of yourself. You can only give back when you first take care and give to yourself. And so that's what I wish somebody would have maybe told me at an earlier age, is that, to be an advocate, it can be very tiring. It can be exhausting. And so make sure you're taking care of yourself, because that's when you're most powerful. Tell your story, because, that is activism, and making sure that your narrative, who you are, is at the forefront of everything that you do, because that's how we ultimately change hearts and minds. It's one thing to get a law passed, but it's another thing to actually, change culture of our family, our friends, our coworkers, people who are in our lives.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Chloe. Well, it's been great. Happy Founders Day.
Happy Founders Day to you.
Yeah, I'm so glad we could do this today. And for everyone who's watching, Chloe is another example of the work that we do. A student at UVA who recently graduated and, was an intern with us and then started doing, some paid work with us. And we're so excited that we're able to be part of your career journey, and who knows what's next, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.